You know what I really wanna ask you? Honestly, genuinely, because coming from a place of, like you said, you really have, in the sense of reaching that point of being able to let go of that, you
Yeah.
know? One thing I struggle with, like, myself, right, is, like, the cussing, like, profanity,
Uh-huh.
because that's a natural way in which I speak on my raps, like, when I'm rapping, and don't get me wrong, like, I did 2 whole albums that were, like, purposely clean, like, out of the delivery to show myself that I could do it without cussing, like, and still make dope tracks. But I think, yeah, I sometimes I struggle with, like I said, I guess giving up that control because I feel compelled at times. Oh, do I need to switch my whole style, like, and be like a, Christian rapper, or can I continue to do what I'm doing? Because it still is from that place of love. And I also feel like there's value in me not labeling it because for those audiences that maybe get turned off right away by hearing that term. So I want to ask you, like as a Christian, what do you feel like is the best way to go about that? What do you feel like is the smartest way to present myself? Because I'm not afraid to talk about my faith in my songs, and I do. You listen, I'm mentioning God all the time. Honestly, maybe too much for somebody who isn't a Christian. Like you're like, wait, you're not a Christian rapper? But do you feel like that label is necessary, or do you feel like I'm doing it right? Because I really struggle with that question.
I feel like a lot of times we get caught up in right and wrong, not in the sense of like morally right and wrong, but like the small things that don't necessarily matter. Like I think personally a label, like labeling yourself I'm this doesn't matter. If that makes sense. Cause like, yeah,
Yeah,
when I was early in my career, I was 100% I'm a Christian rapper. This is who I am. This is what I do. And then we
yeah,
heard through life the Christian rappers we grew up on, Lecrae, Andy Mineo, all of those guys, they went through almost like an awakening of like trying to reach more by saying, no, I'm a rapper that's a Christian. Like my faith will come out through it. And I think both angles are necessary and needed. They're
mhm,
needed spaces. But again, it goes back to who you are and who you're trying to reach. Because I
yeah,
had a pastor once tell me when I was in my rap career, he was like, "You're like a spiritual Navy SEAL, I feel like. You're like going in." Because I mean, I've done rap
yeah,
shows where you know, the artist spotlights where you pay to play, which are nonsense if you're out there. Just
yeah,
let you know where you go and the only audience is more artists. It's great
yeah.
for networking possibilities to a degree, but I went to some of
But it's
those,
different
and
themselves.
I'm not far from Dallas, so Deep Ellum, I performed at the Quixotic World Theater. I don't know if you know where that's at, Poor David's
Yeah,
Pub,
yeah,
that whole a couple of those places, and I performed, and I was, like, the only Christian rapper there. Then I met another guy that was also a Christian rapper, but I never, like, was like, "Hey, my name's" I went by Redone. "My name's Redone, I'm a Christian rapper." I never, like, openly led with that. I just
right.
my raps my raps were mostly about God. I mean, as I progressed, I could rap about relationships or just life experiences. And I can remember there was a guy that came up to me and he was like, after the show, and obviously I'm spirit led, I'm spirit filled, I'm gonna be moving Holy Spirit wise. And I tend to preach sometimes during my messages, like not preaching. I'm not gonna give a salvation call or any of that. But I had a guy come up after one of my shows and he was like, "Man, and he caught himself and he was about to cuss talking about my music, but then he
Yeah,
noticed that I was Christian and caught himself, and I'm like, "Hey, man, I appreciate it, and you don't have to censor yourself around me because
yeah,
I'm not offended by that." And the only reason I stopped cussing, because I mean, dude, I had the worst mouth. I mean, I grew up listening to Lil Wayne and Drake. I mean, God,
yeah,
Young Money, YOLO, right?
yeah.
Like, I grew up in that world. Like, when I first started rapping, I wasn't a Christian rapper. I was
Mm,
definitely rapping about the world. And I was like, I grew up in church because we're in Texas. It's what we do. Like, we grew up in church and like I found God through, and it was actually a rapper, a Christian rapper at a thing that I truly found who God was. But I say all that to say is like, they were outreaching people. They weren't trying to label themselves as something
yeah.
specific. They're just simply bringing their personal experiences onto wax, onto recordings. And I think it's going to be more important the relationships and the connections and the opportunities to live out your faith. That's what's going to speak to people more than just
Mhm.
labeling yourself something.
That's good. It gave me a lot of peace too, because when I did my venue show and I played, like, once I got off stage, somebody had told me that, like, like, a random person, like, I hadn't even met, like, before the show, they were just happened to be there, and he was like, "Man, dude, like, you really got it." He was just complimenting me, but he's like, "I really saw God in your performance." And I was like, Whoa, 'cause I same thing.
Yeah,
I didn't go and say, "Hey, I'm a Christian rapper," or anything like that. I had this one particular track that was very devoted to God, right? And I did that track. I think but what was crazy is that really touched a lot of the people in the room, and, like, they really loved the song. But mainly too, because the song was from a relatable place of, like,
yeah,
when you aren't hearing that voice, right? And, like, when you're struggling to hear those answers, you know? But I always say too, like, more importantly, like, yes, I'm a Christian, but also like, I tell people like the quickest way to truly find God is like where it says like seek me with all your heart, and you'll find me type thing is really like that's why my way of saying that is focusing on the relationship above the religion. Like really like have a relationship with God.
you're
And the is because your religion is never gonna be perfectly on par. You're never gonna be perfectly living it out, right? Like there's just no such thing. But when you're focused on a relationship with God, it will allow you to hear when he is speaking to you, and that will compel you and lead you in the right direction automatically. You won't be doing things because you feel like you have to get into heaven. You're
exactly.
doing things because you out of a love for him, you really want to do, which is why I feel so compelled in my heart, right? To like make sure I'm doing it right, right? Because I really do have a relationship with God. I'm not a perfect Christian, but I have a real relationship with God. And so I just want to make sure I'm doing right by him. It's like anyone else in your life that you consider close to you. You would want to make sure that you're setting a good example for them. You know that what you do in your life reflects on those that are close to you, your family, your friends, your wife, whatever, right? Like those actions affect those people. And so just like any other relationship in your life, when you treat God like that kind of person, it's almost like you want to make sure, okay, this has an effect on how people perceive God, right? Am I doing right by him? And so I really do care about that. And I'm glad that we had this conversation